We've all had dreams that felt a little too real. You wake up in a cold sweat. You take some sleeping pills or drink some hot cocoa or maybe smoke a big fat J, but you eventually close your eyes, go back to sleep, and it's forgotten about by morning. But Christine's nightmares were so intense, they weren't easily wiped away by a good night's sleep or a puff on the sticky icky. In fact, it would take a much more divine approach to rid Christine of her nightly demons. Christine Hale had never been particularly superstitious. She was the kind of college student who prided herself on logic, psych major, second year, good GPA, part-time barista, late-night reader of dense articles about cognition and sleep cycles. Nightmares, she believed, were the brain's way of sorting unresolved stress. Nothing mystical. Nothing external. Nothing real. That belief held firm right up until the first dream. It began without warning. Christine found herself lying flat on her back. The surface beneath her was cold and slightly damp, as if it had absorbed years of moisture from unseen sources. The air smelled metallic, thick with something she didn't want to identify. Christine felt an electric tingling running across her body. It was intense, enough to leave her writhing in agony. It would flow both across her skin and inside her flesh. She even felt it in her bones. It started at her toes, this sharp and constant tingle that soon engulfed both of her twisting feet. Then the tingle worked its way up her wriggling legs, through her grinding hips and into her torso, her chest and across her arching spine. Then it worked its way up her throat and across her face into her skull and directly into her brain. Every cell in her body tingled with electric agony, leaving her unable to run, unable to escape. The only thing she could do is react to the agony with a dance of agonized writhing and soft moans. Above her, darkness stretched endlessly. No ceiling, no stars, just void. Then came the sound. Soft at first, whispers. 4 voices. They echoed from somewhere beyond her field of vision, circling her like predators testing the edge of a boundary. The language was unfamiliar, harsh and fluid at once, syllables folding over each other in a way that made her stomach twist. Christine strained her neck, desperate to see, and then they appeared. 4 women stepped into view, one at each corner of the stone altar. They wore long black cloaks, their faces partially hidden beneath deep hoods, pale chins, thin lips, eyes that seemed too dark, too hollow. The chanting grew louder. Christine's heartbeat spiked. "Stop," she tried to say. Nothing came out. The words lodged somewhere behind her tongue, swallowed by the pressure building inside her chest. The women raised their hands in unison, and that is when Christine's pain became even more intense. It wasn't physical at first, it was deeper than that. A tearing sensation, not in her muscles or bones, but somewhere intangible. Something essential. Herself. Christine's back arched violently off the altar as a wave of agony surged through her. It felt as though invisible hooks had latched onto her soul and were pulling slowly, deliberately away from her body. Her mouth opened in a silent scream. The chanting intensified. Each word seemed to tighten the grip on whatever was being pulled from within her. Her vision blurred, darkened at the edges, then sharpened again in cruel clarity. "I'm dying," she thought. "No! Worse, I'm being taken." Her limbs trembled uncontrollably. She tried to sit up, to roll, to do anything, but the pain pinned her in place more effectively than any restraint. The woman leaned closer. Their voices overlapped now, rising into something almost melodic, something ancient and wrong. Christine felt herself slipping, like her consciousness was being peeled back layer by layer. Then one of the women reached beneath her cloak and drew a knife. Its blade caught a faint, unseen light, gleaming with a dull, wet sheen. Christine's eyes widened. No. The woman lifted the blade and plunged it straight into Christine's chest. Christine woke with a violent gasp. She shot upright in bed, clutching her chest. No wound, no blood. Just the echo of pain, radiating outward like a phantom injury. Her room was dark, lit only by the faint glow of her alarm clock, 3:17 a.m. Her sheets were soaked with sweat. Her heart hammered so hard she thought it might tear itself apart. It was just a dream, she whispered. She repeated it again and again, until the words lost all meaning. The second night it happened again. Christine began tossing and turning in her sleep, kicking the covers off her writhing body and screaming in nightmarish terror. In her dreams, she was back on that cold damn altar. Once again, excruciating pain was consuming her, and demonic forces felt as if they were tearing Christine's soul apart. Once again, she heard the distant chanting, each syllable like a dagger in her body, each lyric like a razor, slicing her to bits. Then, the woman appeared. Still clad in black robes, they sauntered up to the altar and began their demonic ritual. And once again, Christine felt the claws of Satan tearing her to pieces. She screamed and writhed, moaned and squirmed, but no amount of movement could alleviate the intense physical pain of this hellish, soul-ripping ritual. After what seemed like an eternity, the cloaked women eventually brandished their sacrificial knife and brought Christine's suffering to an end. The third night, the same. By the fifth, Christine stopped trying to convince herself it was coincidence. Every detail was identical. The altar, the four women, the chanting, the pain, God, the pain, and the knife. Always the knife. Always the moment of impact. Always waking at 3:17 a.m. By the second week, her life began to fracture. She stopped sleeping properly, afraid of what waited on the other side of unconsciousness. When she did drift off, the dream came instantly, as if it had been waiting. Her classes blurred together. She missed assignments. Her professor pulled her aside after a lecture. "Christine, this isn't like you. Are you okay?" She nodded automatically. "I'm fine. Just not sleeping well." That was an understatement so severe it bordered on absurd. She wasn't just tired. She was unraveling. The waking hours weren't safe anymore either. At first it was subtle. The feeling, like being watched. Christine would be sitting in the campus library, surrounded by students, and suddenly her skin would prickle, as though unseen eyes had locked onto her. She'd turn. No one was there. Or worse, people were there, but none of them were looking at her. Except sometimes she thought she caught a glimpse of black fabric disappearing around a corner. A shadow lingering too long. A whisper just at the edge of hearing. She stopped going out unless absolutely necessary. Stopped answering messages. Stopped calling her parents. Her apartment became her entire world. And even there, she didn't feel alone. By the third week, Christine was barely functioning. She sat on the edge of her bed one afternoon, staring at nothing, her mind heavy and slow. "I am losing it," she muttered. There was no other explanation. Stress. Sleep deprivation. Hallucinations. That had to be it. It had to be. But then, a voice. Soft. Right behind her, almost ready. Christine froze. Her blood turned to ice. She turned slowly. Nothing. The room was empty, but the air felt wrong. Thick. Occupied. Her chest tightened. "I need help," she whispered. She didn't call a doctor. She didn't call a therapist. Instead, she called Sarah. Sarah had always been different. Deeply religious, steady, unshakable in her beliefs. The kind of person Christine used to debate for fun, philosophy versus faith, science versus scripture. Now, Christine found herself clinging to the memory of Sarah's certainty like a lifeline. Sarah answered on the second ring. Christine? Hey? Are you okay? You haven't... I need you to come over. Christine interrupted, her voice trembling. Please, a pause. I'm on my way. Sarah arrived with two others, Mark and Elena, both from her church. They stepped into Christine's apartment and immediately exchanged glances. There is a presence in this house, something dark, something sinister. We both feel it. Christine's stomach dropped. So I'm not crazy. No, Mark said firmly. You're not. That should have been comforting. It wasn't. Christine told them everything. The dreams, the altar, the women, the pain, the knife, the voice, the presence. By the time she finished, her hands were shaking so badly she had to grip her knees to steady them. Elena crossed herself. Sarah looked pale. This isn't just nightmares, Sarah said finally. This is oppression. Christine blinked. Oppression! Spiritual, Mark clarified. Something is targeting you. Christine let out a weak, humorless laugh. Great. That's so much worse. Sarah reached for her hand. We're gonna help you. How? Sarah hesitated. Pastor Miriam arrived just before sunset. She was older, mid-50s maybe, but carried herself with a quiet authority that filled the room the moment she stepped inside. Her eyes settled on Christine, and something in her expression tightened. You've been under attack for some time, she said. Christine swallowed. Yeah, that's one way to put it. Pastor Miriam nodded. We need to act tonight. They moved Christine to her bed. Christine's pulse quickened. That sounds dangerous. It is, Pastor Miriam said calmly, but doing nothing is worse. The room grew dim as evening settled in. Candles were lit. Soft prayers filled the space. Christine lay on her back, staring at the ceiling, her body tense. I don't like this, she whispered. Sarah squeezed her hand. We're here. Pastor Miriam stepped closer. Christine, she said, her voice steady, you may feel pain. You may feel resistance. Do not give in to it. Christine nodded weakly. Okay, close your eyes. Christine hesitated, then obeyed. It started almost immediately. A pressure. Familiar. Horrifying. No. Christine gasped. No. Her back arched. The altar. She was back on the altar. The chanting, louder than ever. Her eyes flew open, but she was still in her room. And not. Both at once. The ceiling flickered between plaster and endless void. The voices overlapped, Pastor Miriam praying, the women chanting. Christine screamed. Her body thrashed violently against the bed. They're here, she cried. They're here. Hold her. Mark shouted. Hands gripped her shoulders, her arms. But it didn't stop the pain. It was worse than before. So much worse. It felt like her soul was being ripped apart. Stop, she begged. Please, make it stop. Pastor Miriam's voice rose, firm and commanding. You have no claim over her. The chanting faltered, then intensified. Christine writhed, her body contorting unnaturally. This went on for hours and hours. Christine writhed and screamed in pain. Holy water splashed on her body, burned like hot water, and caused her to moan in low devilish tones. Her toes curled and her legs bucked and kicked with every splash. Her back arched from the agony and her head tilted back as she screamed in pain. She could feel the demons inside her fighting back, clawing at her soul, ripping and damaging her inner spirit in an attempt to hang on rather than be ousted from this innocent girl. The demons clung onto her soul for dear life, and she said she felt as if they were ripping her soul right out of her body. She screamed and writhed in the most intense pain she's ever felt. Her body convulsed so violently that at one point the pastor considered stopping the exorcism. Many in the congregation felt that Christine was in danger of seriously hurting herself by the way she was gyrating and seizing on the bed. "They're pulling me," she screamed. "I can feel it. They're pulling me out." "No," Pastor Miriam said sharply. "They are losing their hold." The air seemed to vibrate. The room darkened. Christine's vision filled with the four cloaked women. Closer than ever, their faces were no longer shadowed. They were wrong, twisted, not entirely human. One raised the knife. "No." Christine screamed. The blade descended. "Leave her." Pastor Miriam's voice cut through everything like thunder. The knife stopped midair. The chanting broke. A sound erupted. Inhuman, furious. The woman recoiled. Christine gasped as the pulling sensation snapped back violently. Her body slammed against the bed. The room went silent. For a moment there was nothing. No pain. No voices. No presence. That night Christine slept. Truly slept. But sometimes, late at night, she would wake suddenly, her heart racing. Not from a dream, but from a memory. The feeling of something being pulled from her. And the certainty that whatever had taken hold of her hadn't chosen her by accident. Christine never spoke about it publicly. Not in class. Not in papers. Not even to most of her friends. But she kept Pastor Miriam's number saved, just in case. Because some part of her knew, with cold, unshakable clarity, that the boundary between her world of quiety and whatever lay beyond it was thinner than she had ever believed. And once crossed, it might not stay closed forever.